but it doesn't. It doesn't because one of the stories going around town now is that a lot of these guys who looked like they were doing the shooting first were actually shooting in self-defense. One fellow, Calvin Schaefer, who was originally arrested on murder charges, and those charges have since been dropped. His attorney expects self-defense will apply quite well in this case. Other people, of course, prosecutors are going to argue that you don't bring a gun and a ball-peen hammer and a switchblade to a bar just to have a cocktail.
The prosecutors certainly believe that the information contained in those videotapes is hugely important. Whether or not the information provides enough evidence to determine a verdict, that's up to a jury to decide.
8 Hells Angels and 6 Mongols now face murder charges, and America's biggest ever biker trial is due to begin in July. Back in 2003, as the anniversary of the Laughlin shootout approached, there was little sign of the feud between the Mongols and the Angels abating. Worrying news emerged that Hells Angel president Daniel Sabiet was shot dead leaving his local bar in Phoenix. 2 days later, a Mongol was stabbed in the back. With River Run 2003 a few weeks away, law enforcement was doubly determined to avoid any violence.
We cannot afford in a tourist community to allow outlaw individuals to create an event where we have 3 people dead, 12 people wounded in a resort casino. People will not come to a tourist community if they're afraid, and the shootout last year could create a fear.
Everybody is devastated when tragedies occur of that nature. It's in human nature to kind of hold your breath, you might say. There's a lot of enthusiasts that want to be here that are kind of sitting back and looking to see what happens and how it's going to run for them to decide to come back next year.
With ominous signs of rising tension between the Mongols and the Hells Angels, Laughlin braced itself in nervous anticipation for the start of River Run 2003.
You learn from last year's events, and many motorcycle clubs have a club insignia or logo that identifies them with that club or organization, and they'll wear that on a vest or on a jacket. What we've asked is to not wear those colors and to not wear those organizations, meaning we're all here together and we're all one. We're here to enjoy one another and meet one another.
The theme is prevention. We want to prevent problems. We want to prevent the bad people from doing bad things, very simply. We want to see this be a successful river run. We want people to see Laughlin in a good light.
We started a year ago planning for this year. We actually have a situation room being set up that we can work out of so that we have up-to-date, right-to-the-minute information about what's going on the street out there. The difference between this year and last year is about twice as many policemen.
The biggest gang in Laughlin this year will be the cops.
Faced with this intolerable prospect, the outlaw bikers announced they were to boycott the event. The town breathed a huge sigh of relief, and the river run passed by peacefully.
Here in Laughlin, things have gone very smoothly. Metro officers have reported no problems with gang members thus far.
And, thankfully for 2002 hero Gary Hood, the event has remained trouble-free.
The outlaw biker culture has created so many myths. They grab the myth of the Old West and they try to turn the bikers, many of whom are basically hoodlums on 2 wheels, into cowboy figures, into gunfighters and that sort of thing. So much of the biker subculture has grown out of that, live hard and die early. And certainly the Laughlin shootout fits that myth ideally. I mean, it just might be something that brings a certain cachet to the river run and creates its own myth and its own legend as it goes. Because people will want to go where the shootout was, and they're going to want to sit there at the bar and throw back a shot of tequila and talk talk about those days, whether they were there or not. I mean, in 10 years, you might find that 5 million people were at the River Run, and they're all bragging about being in the bar when the shooting occurred.
Although shocking in its brutality, the Laughlin riot was just one incident in a much larger war. Over the years, it's been estimated that biker clashes have claimed 200 lives in Canada. Around 30 have died in the Scandinavian war that's featured anti-tank rocket launchers. And in the States, skirmishes have resulted in close to 50 fatalities.
The main war used to be between the Hells Angels and the Outlaws. Everyone else was kind of neutral. In the last 5 years, it's become the Hells Angels versus every other group. The other groups are tired of the Hells Angels dictating the terms of their existence.
I think the clashes between the outlaw clubs originally were more about turf, claiming this area is ours, whether it's a city, whether it's a state, whether it's a country. Over the years, it progressed to more of a business-oriented turf battle, and that is, this is our market. This is where we're distributing drugs, or this is where we control this particular enterprise. Since the 70s, we've seen time and again these various organizations involved in numerous criminal acts: murder, prostitution, money laundering, drug trafficking, and we're now at a time frame where I think most everyone would agree that at least a good portion of the methamphetamine market is controlled by outlaw motorcycle gangs. Once you find out that there's that kind of money that can be derived out of drug trafficking, it also explains why there's been such violence over that territory to control that drug turf.
They are a significant organized crime presence in the United States, in Canada, throughout Western Europe, Brazil, Southern Europe now, South Africa, and going into Asia.
Faced with these mounting allegations, the outlaw biker community and its representatives have responded by accusing law enforcement agencies of letting their imaginations run riot.
I've represented different angels over the last 20 years of my career, thankfully always successfully. And I think a lot of times there's an overreaction on the part of law enforcement when they see somebody who they believe is an angel and therefore translates into a criminal.
Every time law enforcement gets put to their proof, very little, if anything, occurs. For example, they busted the Hells Angels with great fanfare about 2 or 3 years ago out in Ventura. They arrested their leader. They charged him with all kinds of nonsense. When the dust settled, I think they got him on one count of tax evasion or something that had nothing to do with all the grandiose claims that law enforcement was making about organized crime. There's a lot of smoke and very little substance, but they're easy to pick on because they ride bikes and they wear black leather jackets.
They're not all bad guys. They got families. You know, if the world wasn't so sticking their nose in people's business and trying to, you know, decipher them, I don't come to your house and decipher you, all right? Maybe I don't like your Bostonian shoes. Maybe I don't like your pinstripe suit. But I don't stand on a corner pointing fingers at you, you know? It's what society has